Welcome back, everyone, to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a really fascinating chapter all about the ancient, magical, and totally visually rich storytelling traditions of Bharata. We usually think of multimedia as this super modern invention, right? Like something born in the age of smartphones and the internet. But what if I told you that interactive, multisensory storytelling has actually been thriving in India for literally thousands of years? Our goal today is explaining the chapter that completely flips how we look at education, entertainment, and preserving our culture. So let's unlock these ancient visual keys to India's greatest stories and see exactly how they shaped an entire civilization.
Okay, let's dive right into this. How exactly did these massive epic tales first reach the common folks? I mean, think about it for a second. Long before mass media, way before television, before even printed books were a thing, how did these incredibly complex scriptures, cultural values, and epic histories actually spread across such a massive and diverse subcontinent? Well, to answer that, the chapter introduces us to a pretty unique and honestly magical guide to help us trace the roots of this unbelievable communication network.
So meet Ketanjali. According to our text, she's an immortal girl who has been traveling across India for thousands of years. She loved telling stories so much that she read them, she lived through them, and she even created them. But as she was wandering across Bharatha, she ran into a really big problem. The common people simply didn't know these stories. They were completely missing out on all the fun, and more importantly, they were missing out on the really deep, profound values embedded inside them. Now, obviously, she couldn't possibly tell stories to millions of people all by herself, right? So she came up with a genuinely brilliant solution. She literally created storytellers, people who were specially trained to memorize and narrate these tales in super engaging ways to absolutely everyone, from tiny little kids to the elderly. Now, Katanjali's strategy actually worked perfectly for hundreds of years, relying entirely on just spoken tales and oral traditions. But then, around the 2nd century BCE, she noticed something that literally every modern teacher or presenter dreads. The audience was getting bored, they were getting distracted. So to fix this, she completely revolutionized the format. She decided to introduce pictures, music, dance, and even puppets. You guys, this was basically ancient India's version of a full-scale multimedia upgrade. Let's trace how this amazing shift evolved over the centuries, starting with an absolutely massive development that happened in the 12th century down in the south.
During the 12th century, while she was traveling through southern India, Katanjali saw these incredibly beautiful temples and art. But she realized that a lot of people were still totally unaware of the great epics. Taking inspiration from Narada Muni, who traditionally traveled around narrating stories of Lord Vishnu, she encouraged the local Bhagavatar community to step up to the plate. And they did. They started telling stories through this super captivating mix of interactive song and dance. The absolutely crucial point here is that this wasn't just passive listening, it was an entire event. Because these performances mostly narrated the stories of Lord Hari, this vibrant tradition came to be known as Harikate. And wow, did it catch on. It exploded in popularity all across Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu.
And, like all truly great art forms, Harikathe didn't just stay static. It kept evolving, thanks to some really brilliant innovators. Enter Guru Rajalu Naidu. Born in 1931, this multilingual, insanely talented storyteller actually earned the prestigious title of Karnataka Harikathe Pitamaha, which translates to the grandfather of Karnataka Harikathe. Historically, these Harikathe performances were these massive epic events that would literally go on all night long. But Naidu really understood the changing times. He recognized that attention spans were shifting, so he revolutionized the art form by condensing those massive all-night epics into crisp, super intense 90-minute performances. And the modern audience absolutely ate it up. He managed to perfectly bridge the ancient and the modern, keeping the whole tradition incredibly relevant.
Let's keep moving and see how this builds. If we shift our focus over to the deserts of Rajasthan, we find another unbelievable innovation. When it became obvious that the everyday common folks couldn't easily read complex scriptures like the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, a community of craftspeople called the Bhatts invented a true marvel. It's called the Kavad Katha. This tradition is over 500 years old. It is, quite literally, a wooden box of stories, beautifully crafted from mango wood. Depending on the story being told, these ingenious boxes have anywhere from 8 to 16 folding parts or doors. And get this, the biggest one ever made was literally 25 feet long. The storytellers would travel from village to village, dynamically unfolding these painted doors to reveal the narrative visually as they spoke. Just brilliant.
To truly understand the profound cultural impact of this whole thing, we really have to listen to the practitioners themselves. Take Kohar Jiram, for instance. He's a veteran Kavadia from Rajasthan who has been practicing this art for over 40 years. He explains that back in the day, people believed deeply in this concept of Gyan Dan Bhagwan, basically the giving of knowledge as a divine act. He notes that whenever a Kavadia arrived in a village, everyone would immediately gather around together under a tree. It was essentially as if the temple itself had traveled directly to them. They weren't just looking at pictures of God, they were actively listening to the profound knowledge embedded inside those stories. And here's a really cool side note. These storytellers also acted as the local record keepers. They actually maintained the books of births and deaths for the neighborhood families.
Now, what's really interesting here is how this concept of visual storytelling adapted so incredibly well to the diverse geographies all across India. In Rajasthan, you had the super vibrant, wide canvas Fod paintings. But meanwhile, way up in the Himalayan regions, these highly intricate Thangka paintings emerged. The artistic styles are radically different from each other, which totally makes sense because they reflect their unique local landscapes, their available resources, and their specific cultures. Yet the underlying technology, this genius idea of using sequential, highly detailed art to completely bypass the need for written language, is exactly the same. Let's quickly break down what these regional visual tales actually covered. The Fod scrolls over in Rajasthan traditionally focused on the Puranas, tales of ancient kings, massive historical battles, and the praise of local deities, like Pabuji and Devanarayan. On the flip side, the Thangka paintings found in places like Ladakh, Sikkim, Jammu and Kashmir, and Arunachal Pradesh illustrated Buddhist scriptures, major events in the lives of saints, and various local folk stories. The true brilliance of all this is their universal appeal. As our text points out, pictures do not need a language. Anyone, absolutely anyone, regardless of their literacy level or what their native tongue was, could stand before a Thangka or a Fod scroll and perfectly understand the epic playing out right in front of them. But here is where we kind of have to face a harsh reality. And honestly, it's why explaining this chapter today is so incredibly crucial. These amazing, centuries-old traditions are rapidly dying out. Historically, an entire village would gather together under a tree to listen to a kavakata. It was this rich, communal, shared experience that really bonded society and built up the community. Today, though, we are increasingly isolated. We're sitting alone, staring at television screens and smartphones. The younger generation just isn't stepping up to learn these complex storytelling arts anymore. And the tragic truth we have to face is, if the storytellers disappear, the stories themselves vanish, right along with them.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how we might be able to reverse this trend, drawing directly from the circle time section of the chapter. Think about it. What if you didn't just passively read your school textbooks? What if you took a chapter from, say, your English or social science book and narrated it using the exact same techniques we just learned about? Imagine drawing out your history lesson like a giant Fod scroll, or memorizing a tough poem by singing and moving around like a Harikatha performer. The text actually encourages this because adding those visual and interactive elements literally helps you internalize and remember the lessons way better. You aren't just studying at that point. You are actively becoming a modern-day storyteller.
So, we're going to leave you with a bit of a challenge, drawn straight from the very end of our chapter. If you were in the government today, what actionable steps would you take to save these magnificent art forms from dying out? Or better yet, if you were Kathanjali today, creating a brand new format for the 21st century to make storytelling communal, visual, and deeply meaningful again, what exactly would you invent? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep visualizing, and most importantly, keep telling great stories.